Some people never give you closure, not because they don't know what to say, because saying nothing keeps you closer than any conversation ever could. You tell yourself they're confused, processing, scared of confrontation. But some people don't avoid clarity because they lack it. They avoid it because ambiguity is a tool. When someone disappears without explanation, your mind builds loops. You replay the final interaction, you search for the turning point, you draft messages you never send. The discomfort isn't about missing information, it's about an incomplete structure. Your brain won't archive the experience because nothing was declared finished. That incompletion is functional. People who never give closure don't disappear suddenly. They reduce contact in increments. A delayed reply, a vague statement. They stop initiating but continue responding. They never say it's over, they never say it continues. The door stays cracked, not to invite you in, to keep you from fully leaving. This is not accidental behavior. Silence alternates with contact. Weeks of nothing, then a single message. Months pass, then a brief acknowledgement. Each instance resets the loop without advancing it. The pattern doesn't indicate confusion, it maintains access without commitment. They remain present enough to occupy mental space, absent enough to avoid obligation. You interpret this as unfinished business. They experience it as optionality. The waiting has a structure. You stop checking your phone, then a notification arrives, and the monitoring resumes. You decide you've detached, then something triggers recall and the entire system reactivates. The issue isn't psychological weakness. The issue is that your nervous system registers unresolved relational data as an incomplete threat assessment. Not a physical threat, social threat. The kind that kept early humans tracking group position and resource distribution. Your body doesn't distinguish between environmental danger and relational ambiguity. Both produce sustained vigilance, both prevent full disengagement. They understand this without stating it. Silence after intimacy produces a specific kind of monitoring, the kind that doesn't require their participation, the kind that makes you responsible for maintaining the relational space for two people. Closure would collapse that structure. When you begin to redirect attention elsewhere, something shifts. They register the withdrawal, not through intuition, through pattern recognition. You stop monitoring their activity, you stop being accessible at predictable intervals. You stop providing the ambient attention they've extracted without reciprocation. The breadcrumb appears. Not an apology, not clarification, just enough contact to reactivate the connection without defining it. A question with no real content, a reference to shared context, a statement calibrated for maximum ambiguity. The information itself is irrelevant. The timing is precise. It arrives when your attention is beginning to fully relocate. This is calculated. They've observed that intermittent reinforcement produces stronger behavioral persistence than consistent reward. They don't need continuous presence, they need an unpredictable presence. Variable reward schedules generate the most durable response patterns. Slot machines operate on this principle. So do people who never give closure. You receive the message and your system recalibrates, not because anything was resolved, because the uncertainty confirmed itself as ongoing rather than concluded. Your nervous system codes this as active file and adjusts resource allocation accordingly. The monitoring continues. The door remains cracked. They've extended access without cost. The asymmetry is structural. You're managing two positions in the relationship, they're managing one. You're running future scenario simulations, you're calculating appropriate contact intervals, you're modulating tone to signal interest without desperation, engagement without pressure. They're responding when it suits them. This imbalance doesn't register as manipulation because it contains no overt demand. They're not asking you to wait, they're not promising anything, they're not claiming ongoing investment. The absence of explicit terms makes the dynamic difficult to name. You can't identify someone as using you when they've never actually asked for anything. They've simply left the opening available and you keep returning to it. The ambiguity serves them.
If you could describe what was happening in clear terms, you could respond in clear terms. But the situation resists definition. Is there interest or not? Is this connection or residue? Did it end or pause? The questions lack answers because answers require their participation, and their participation requires commitment to defined reality. They prefer undefined reality. In undefined space, they extract benefits without costs. They can occupy your thoughts without thinking of you. They can hold significance for you without reciprocal significance. The relationship exists in your processing with far greater intensity than it exists in theirs. But they're aware enough of your processing to maintain it when useful. People who never give closure often run multiple instances of this simultaneously, not because they're pathological, because this is how they've structured relational risk management. Keeping options open registers as safer than selection. Maintaining ambiguity registers as less vulnerable than stated position. They're not attempting harm, they're avoiding the exposure of clear commitment. The outcome is identical. Someone else carries the unfinished weight. You notice the linguistic pattern. Everything is provisional. Maybe, possibly, we'll see, could be. Nothing stated in definitive terms. Even immediate-level communication contains built-in exits. They say they'll call later and don't. Not because plans changed, because later was never a plan. It was a linguistic placeholder that kept you future-oriented without obliging them to appear in that future. This isn't communication failure. This is strategic definition. The person seeking closure spends months in interpretive labor, looking for signals, requesting an external analysis of their messages, questioning whether the ambiguity is real or imagined. The interpretation itself becomes a connection mechanism. You're thinking about them continuously, attempting to decode them. They're not thinking about you with comparable frequency. They don't need to. You're performing that function for both parties. At some point, the realization forms. The closure being waited for will not arrive. Not because they're incapable, because they've already determined that non-delivery serves them better. Closure is territorial release. When someone states, "This is finished," they surrender future access rights. They close their own entry point along with yours. What they've maintained is the access point, and your continued waiting for them to seal it is evidence that they never needed to.